We have a family cabin that's been in our family for many years, and we want to pass that down to our children when we pass away. What are some things that we need to be considering to avoid fights and make it as effective as possible? That is a great question. So I'm going to address all that here now. So if you've had a family cabin in your family for many years, very likely that that cabin's appreciated greatly in value. And if it has, the very first thing that you're going to want to think through is the tax implications of when you gift that to your children on your death. Because even though you gifted it, it's going to be deemed disposed of, and so therefore taxes will be payable. So it's going to be a capital gain, and 50% of capital gains currently in Canada are taxable. So you want to make sure that you have enough cash inside your estate to fund that tax liability. And how you're going to come up with that is either you're going to sell other assets to fund it, you're going to have the cash, or you're going to use insurance. One thing's for sure, though, is you want to think that through, because if you don't, and there's a big tax liability, well, you may have to sell the cabin to come up with that tax liability, defeating your overall purpose and goal of passing it down to your kids. So the next thing is how are you going to fund cabin expenses, right? If you give the cabin down to your two children, and the cabin needs a new deck or a new roof, and it's going to cost $50,000, are each of your children in a financial position to fund that, right? Are they going to be able to come up with $25,000 to pay for that? Or even just the general maintenance and upkeep of the cabin? You may find that your kids are at vastly different financial positions in their lives. Maybe they're at different career stages or different family stages, and they just don't have the resources to fund it. So this is where you're going to want to create what we call a cabin fund. So as parents, in your will, you just draft it up where a few $100,000 are left behind to fund the cabin maintenance and expenses. So if you need a new roof, you need a new deck, those expenses come from the cabin fund. Therefore, your kids don't have to worry about it, and once again, avoiding fights. Another consideration is should you be leaving this cabin to all of your children? So let's say that you have 3 children, 2 of whom use the cabin regularly and 1 that doesn't. And the one that doesn't, they don't use it because they live at a province or they're just far away or they just don't have a desire to go and use the cabin. But if they own it, are they on the hook for the cabin expenses, for the maintenance, the upkeep, all of these types of things? And if they are, because they are 1/3 owner, or they're viewed to be on the hook for that because the other siblings feel it's unfair that they cover the whole thing, that could also create some fights. So maybe instead of leaving it to all 3 kids, you leave the one that doesn't use the cabin cash so that perhaps they can go and do their own thing. So think through that, because I get it that it's a family cabin. You want to leave it down equally to all your kids because perhaps your child down the road changes their mind. We hear that often, but that can cause a lot of fights if one person doesn't use it. And lastly, we're a big fan of having a co-ownership agreement in place, drafted by the parents while alive in consultation with the kids. So what I mean by that is the co-ownership agreement is a legal document that you're going to draft up that all the kids will sign off on. Down the road, it'll be binding on them. And the whole idea behind it is you're just going to discuss all the provisions of owning the cabin together. So who's going to open the cabin? How does that determined? And closing the cabin for the season, because that can take a lot of time. How are the weeks determined on who gets to use the cabin? How are expenses divvied up? What happens if you don't have the funds to pay for the expenses or the repairs or maintenance, etc.? What happens if you don't use the cabin and you eventually want to exit from it? If you want to sell your interest? All of these types of things, if you discuss that as parents with yourselves, kind of get the meat of the agreement together before you bring your kids in. I definitely encourage you to speak with a lawyer about getting something like this drafted up so that you think through all the different provisions that should be within it, but then get insight from your kids and understand what's important to them. What are the things that they think are unfair? What are some things that they think should be added in? And when you get this consultation and agreement with your kids, that's how you're going to get a good cohesive group going forward so that when you do pass away and you leave the cabin down to your children, it minimizes fights. Now, obviously, you can have the best planning possible, but sometimes fights still happen. But at least as parents, you tried your best. So I hope that you found this helpful. Thanks.